Once I understood this frequency, my entire reality shifted. Hey, what's up? My name's Excel, and I teach you how to talk to the universe. So, the virtue is the frequency, all right? So, virtue is basically moral excellence. And I'll give you an example of that in just a little bit. But virtue is the key to unlocking your matrix. Once you understand what you're floating around, because your matrix is like a sphere. You're in the center of this huge sphere and is vibrating something very specific for you based off of where you're living from. You basically have to choose something and stick to it no matter what. And I know that sounds like determination. No, it's like literally having a desire to be fully immersed in whatever it is that you're calling in. So, in my particular situation, I've mastered the virtue of truth. Now, truth is not like always going to be positive, right? But by mastering and focusing on the virtue of truth, I've gotten a bunch of different superpowers and I've seen reality shift in ways that I could never have imagined unless I was sticking to that virtue. So, as I focused on truth, I had to first of all do an internal registry, right? When you pick a virtue, you need to do an internal registry. Where do you fall short with the virtue that you're calling in? Virtue can be truth, can be happiness, can be prosperity, can be sexy, can be whatever it is that you want. Just have it be one word, okay? One word should be able to define what the virtue is. So in my case, it being truth, how am I not being truthful in my reality? Was I telling lies to people so I could embellish my, persona so I could look better in people around people? I had to stop lying, right? Because I wanted to focus on truth. So I had to adjust telling like these elaborate stories about myself. I also had to look at where am I lying to myself about specific things, right? And then as I continued to adjust where I was behaving in terms of truth, that was the first step. That's when I started seeing truth speak to me. The virtue is a consciousness. So the virtue can talk back to you, kind of like the law of attraction, once you really understand how it speaks or where its vibration is. So a lot of times people are like, oh, I want to be in the vibration of like prosperity, but you won't let yourself immerse into prosperity. So it's kind of like a disconnect. Sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I really want to know the truth, but you cherry pick what truths you actually want to be exposed to. So the statement of being exposed to all truth is not going to be the same as being exposed to only some truths, right? So that's one of the things you need to understand. It's a consciousness. If you are unclear with the law of attraction, or if you're unclear with a virtue as to where you stand in relation to the virtue, it's going to create limited effects. So I picked truth. I started reevaluating myself. I understood exactly where the truth was and wasn't in my reality. I made a conscious effort to be more honest and to live from truth. So if I didn't want to do something and I knew it was going to piss you off, I'd rather be honest than not. Okay. Hey, I'm not really feeling this, right? And it is what it is. That truth, me accepting my truth, allowed me to see other people's truth by default. If you were trying to manipulate me to go do something and I told you I wasn't feeling it, you were the one that was having a negative reaction, and then you would suddenly start insulting me and you would tell me everything you actually thought about me for all these years. All I had to do was listen, right? The moment I realized what you actually thought about me because you couldn't get what you wanted out of me because I was living to my truth, I cut you out. Because the most honest thing is, do I want more people like that in my life? No. So what's the only thing I could do? Cut them out of my reality, right? So then that's where the feedback loop, the reverb started coming in, right? I started talking to it. I decided to adjust my frequency internally to be in the dimension of truth, essentially. And then suddenly it started talking back to me and showing me things. Now, truth or any virtue has a positive and a negative. And that's like where the third point comes in. Once it starts talking to you, you need to be willing to listen to it if you really want to master it. Sometimes it would tell me, this person is not looking out for you. This relationship isn't benefiting you. Hey, this one habit you've been doing for a minute, why are you doing this? It's holding you back. But at the same time, it would let me be like, hey, this person you just met, you should probably put more attention into this individual than any other person you've ever actually gone on a date with, because they're quality. And then you end up dating that person long term, or they transform your life in a different way. It would also be like, hey, the energy behind this particular thing is vibrating danger. If you don't go, you'll be safe. And then I would be like, I don't have any other reason not to believe this. I would avoid an event, bad things would happen there. I wasn't even caught around because I already picked up on the vibration, because truth was already ahead of the manifestation itself. And that's what I'm getting at. The fourth layer of it is really understanding the virtue is before any manifestation. So that's why, like, when I started understanding the positives and the negatives of communicating with the virtue itself, then I started being able to read people's minds. I was able to read tarot more clearly. I could see what path was actually going to get me to my goal and which paths were not going to get me to my goal. I saw who my true friends were, who my fake enemies were, who I wanted to consider family, right? And of course, by absorbing a virtue, you're going to shift your reality by default. You're basically saying, I'm living from this new normal and I'm not going to move from this new normal. Everything around me has to acclimate to this new normal, was basically what I was doing for a minute. And as I did that, the virtue itself created the reality that I'm existing in right now. Okay. So then every virtue has a benefit and it has a negative. And then as you go along, right, like you can switch a virtue if you want. Every year in the Antojai Academy, what I do is like, if you're gonna do a one-on-one coaching with me, or you end up doing like a group coaching session, a coven, I make everyone pick a virtue, and it can be from courage to prosperity to love to whatever, and everyone sees the same exact thing happen. Like they do an internal analysis, then they go ahead and they adjust to be only in the vibration of the virtue, and then all these things start to happen. Like if you pick love, then you suddenly notice that you're being forced to make the highest actions of love for yourself and for everyone else. And because of it, you're attracting more love to you. And with love comes prosperity. And with that love comes more community, right? With truth comes being able to see, everything for what it is. And what's really cool about truth is truth leads you to knowledge, knowledge leads you to wisdom, wisdom leads you to mastery. So if you end up picking truth, you're basically always choosing moksha. In Hindu alchemy and philosophy, moksha is transcendence. Like you're constantly transcending yourself because you're always looking at the truth, right? And there's so many different virtues you can pick, but it has to be boiled down to one word, and it has to be a word that actually like is something you can embody. So like if you were to use the word crypto, right? Crypto is something you could embody, but it's already amorphous. It's not something that's going to put you on moral excellence. Like, how do you shape yourself with crypto? You can learn crypto and shape your life, but it's not a moral excellence. It's not something that's actually going to like force you as a person to live by a specific set of rules, right? So if you say it's something more so like, I'm going to be dedicated, right? Or I'm going to be determined, or I'm going to have a lot of willpower, that right there, that willpower, even though it's two words, it's technically one, or you can say like determination. Determination is a moral excellence. You have to say, I'm not going to stop no matter what. And then that'll naturally start showing you like where do I stop myself? How do I let other people stop me? Like where am I willing to let reality stop me? Where do I usually stop if I can't find answers? And it puts your whole entire brain into looking at your matrix, okay? Your 0 point is how you see yourself, is where you live from. If you live from a place of scarcity, your 0 point is only going to create more of that. If you live from a place of truth, your 0 point is going to create more of that. So then through the virtue of truth, I've been able to see like, this is a really great business opportunity. It's going to like 10x. And then it grows my wealth because I honestly want to be having that experience, right? I truthfully see myself as somebody that can have that experience. And the more you exercise the virtue of your choice, the more powerful and mystical you're going to seem to everybody around you, because people are not going to understand how it is that you have more of that thing. You're so lucky in that one area of your life. And the cool thing is like, once you really understand like the virtue of truth, right? I've stepped into the virtue of royalty. Royalty is a quality, but it's also an internal feeling. And when you start working with like these higher virtues over time, you can stack them. You can have like 10 to 20 of them if you want. And then they become part of your aura. They become part of your chakra system. They become part of your anatomy, your reality. And then you have a very curated dream life because you are stepping into the virtue that you are just naturally constantly in. You understand? You're stepping into the virtue that you're constantly in. When you're stepping into a virtue that you've been constantly in, it's a theme that has always been in your life, okay? I've always been surrounded by truth and wisdom. I grew up in a very religious setting. I grew up with a lot of people always promoting that you need to talk about truth. There's no point in lying. Like I grew up with that whole concept. So truth is something that I really live by because I hate it when people lie to me. Like my brain is like, when people lie to me because I don't understand why it's necessary, right? And it's helped me at least see where I'm going in my life by being able to identify that truth. And then I've noticed that since truth has always been something that's always circulated in my life, even before I started practicing the virtue of truth, it made it easier to master. So there's a theme in your reality that has always played out for you. Rather, you've always pursued freedom. You've always pursued happiness. You've always pursued kindness or healing or something. That can be a virtue of yours, but you have to fully commit to it and surrender and adjust to that virtue. And superpowers or siddhis, as they say in Hindu culture, and there's other names for it as well, but superpowers that are only uniquely associated to that virtue will manifest for you. Don't forget to grab the Antojai Quantum Reiki Tarot. Subscribe. I'm sending you all the love. All the links you need are in the descriptions below. And share this with somebody who needs to hear it because together we're manifesting, baby. Antojai.